In the midst of time, countless migrations have taken place as humans were displaced or dispersed by natural disasters. For example, 74,000 years ago, nature unleashed a cataclysm upon Earth. A massive eruption of the Toba supervolcano in Sumatra caused a volcanic winter that lasted 1,000 years. Volcanic ash shrouded the skies and Earth. The life of Homo species was crushed almost to the point of extinction. Humanity had reached the brink of survival. Homo erectus, the first among the Homo species, is believed to have evolved in Africa nearly 2 million years ago. Through the ages, as humans have evolved, there have been many out-of-Africa migrations to populate other parts of the world. One wave of migration we can detect with some certainty occurred around 65,000 years ago, when a small group of humans carrying the M168 genetic marker of haplogroup CT emerged from East Africa. Today, nearly every man outside Africa carries this ancient signature. In 2011, the Genographic project by IBM and National Geographic confirmed that these pioneering humans making their way from the Horn of Africa were the first to set foot on the Indian subcontinent, the land destined to become the cradle of civilizations. Research led by Quentin Atkinson reveals that between 45,000 and 20,000 years ago, Southern Asia, including the Indian subcontinent, was the home of about half the human population on Earth. Here, in the sacred land of the Sapta Sindhu, the land of 7 rivers, humanity found refuge and prospered. Archaeogenetic research traces migration patterns, ancestral origins, and genetic relationships over thousands of years. Genetic haplogroups reveal ancient ancestry through maternal or paternal lines. Around 50,000 years ago, haplogroup F arose, giving rise to 6 ancestral lineages: G, H, I, J, K, and L. P branched out from K, and around 30,000 years ago, P split into Q and R. By 22,000 years ago, 2 key genetic subgroups, R1a and R1b, emerged from R, with compelling scientific evidence pointing to their origin in India. Even today, R1 genes dominate Eurasia, and nearly 39% of Indian men carry this genetic heritage. But this is not just a story of genes. It is also a story of languages. From Sanskrit to Tamil, from Avestan to Greek, countless languages of Eurasia trace their distant roots to India. Studies of Tibetan lake sediments reveal that between 15,000 and 14,100 BCE, the southwest monsoon intensified for the first time in India, heralding the end of the last major ice age. It was here, in this fertile cradle, that agriculture is believed to have first sprouted. Indeed, these times brought not only the dawn of farming, but also the first rays of knowledge about astronomy. On the banks of the Saraswati River, the sages of Bharat looked to the heavens. They tracked the movements of stars, recorded the rains, and forged humanity's first rainfall calendar. Around 14,400 BCE, Maharshi Brahma observed the summer solstice, Dakshinayan, in the Dhanishta nakshatra, within the Brahma Rashi constellation. Based on this observation, humanity's first Vedic calendar was born. Astronomy software simulations confirm that the summer solstice in Dhanishta nakshatra occurred around 14,400 BCE. Following Brahma, Manu, Uttanpad, Dhruv, and then, during King Prithu's era, Prithudak in Pehova, India, saw the beginning of the agricultural tradition of ploughing with oxen. At that time, the Saraswati River, originating near Keshav Prayag, close to Badrinath, at the Plaksha Springs, split into 2 grand channels before Prithudak. The first, Suprabha, joined the Y1 channel of the Yamuna River, which also originated in the Himalayas, and then flowed through Prithudak, Hisar, and Pushkar, reaching as far as Kutch. The second, Suvenu, merged with the Satluj, flowing via the Ghaggar channel through Jaisalmer, also reaching Kutch. Pioneering research by Bimal Ghosh and Amal Kar has mapped these lost paleo channels of the Saraswati. Research by a team from IIT Kanpur reveals that by 13,000 BCE, the Satluj changed course, causing the Suvenu branch of the Saraswati to slowly diminish. Meanwhile, the Suprabha Saraswati remained vibrant until its eventual disappearance millennia later. This was the age when the great sage Brihaspati refined the Indian vernacular language through grammar and for the first time structured the Vedic Sanskrit language, teaching it to the 33 Devas. 1,000 years after Brahma, sage Vishwamitra made humanity's first recorded observation of precession, when the summer solstice shifted from Dhanishta to Shravan Nakshatra. Soon after, sage Vashishta revolutionized timekeeping, declaring that the new year should begin not with the solstice but with an equinox. Thus, the Vedic Yuga calendar evolved, transitioning from a monsoon-based summer reckoning to one anchored in the autumnal equinox. The Rig Veda preserves these celestial memories as its verses speak of Ashwini Nakshatra as the equinoctial marker. By 13,322 BCE, the Vedic Yuga calendar was formally introduced, with 5-year Yugas, 20-year Chaturyugas, and 1,000-year Mahayugas. Around this time, sage Dirgatama crowned Bharata, son of the Shanta and Shakuntala, giving India its enduring name, Bharatavarsha. From Vedic King Soma, a contemporary of sage Brihaspati, emerged the 5 lineages of Puru, Anu, Druhyu, Yadu, and Turvashu. Bharata's lineage was also descended from Puru, and from Bharata arose the Kuru and Panchalas. After King Prithu, the conflict between the Devas and Danavas caused a territorial division in the Sapta Sindhu region. The great battle between Indra of the Devas and Vritra of the Danavas set a new direction for human migration. Consequently, the defeated Danavas, sons of Danu, Daityas, sons of Diti, and the Aryas, sons of Ira, crossed the Sindhu river and settled in the foothills of the Hindu Kush mountains, joined by the Sakas. Around 13,000 BC, due to climatic changes, the Daityas moved towards the Caucasus Mountains, while the Danavas migrated to Syria, Jordan, Anatolia, Greece, and North Africa. Remains of ancient bread dating to 12,400 BCE found in Jordan indicate that agriculture outside India was first initiated by the Danavas in this part of West Asia and probably in Iran and Anatolia as well. Archaeogenetic studies of skeletal remains reveal that the R1b1 gene was found in an individual known as Villabruna I, who lived in Italy around 12,000 BCE. Arguably, R1a, R1b, and J haplogroups carried by migrants from India seeded populations across Eurasia, with the Danavas carrying these genetic markers from India to Europe. In the Greek tradition, the Danavas survived as the Danans, the progenitors of early Greek civilization. Plato's description of Atlantis lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, better known now as the Strait of Gibraltar, is intriguing. Recent research points to Spartel Island near Gibraltar, submerged around 10,100 BCE, as a possible location for the lost city and civilization. After the Danava migration, the conflict between the Devas and the Asuras reached its peak. At that time, the zodiac was divided into 28 nakshatras in the Vedic Yuga calendar. Since the winter solstice used to occur at Mrigashira around 11,300 BCE, Mrigashira was listed as the first nakshatra. An astronomical analysis of the description of the Daksha Yajna indicate that it can be dated to around 11,217 BCE, when King Daksh conducted a great fire ceremony in Kankhal, Haridwar. This was the era when the Vedas were compiled in Vedic Sanskrit and the Asura Veda was composed in the Asura language. According to Tamil sources, during this period, sage Agastya not only composed verses of the Rig Veda, but also laid the foundation of ancient Tamil grammar. The Asura Veda, later compiled as the Avesta, tells us that Vaivasvatyama became king in the Asura territories. Ahura Mazda and the first Jarthustra, also known as Zoroaster, lived during this era. The Sapta Sindhu, including the Saraswati region, was sacred to both the Devas and the Asura. After the Devasura war, the worshippers of the so-called Asura Veda migrated towards Persia and the southern Caucasus. Genetic evidence confirms that the populations of India and Iran diverged from each other about 12,000 years ago. The Avesta describes 16 sacred sites stretching from the Saraswati River to the Caucasus. One of these sites was called Arya Namvaze, located in modern-day Azerbaijan, and this became the center of Asura culture. During this time, Sarma Devashuni, a messenger of Indra, warned the Asura Pani in a cave by the Ras River, today's Aras River, that runs through the southern Caucasus. The name Zahak mentioned in the Avesta is a transformed form of Takshak, who took over Persia after Jamshid. As Takshak was a descendant of Kashyap, the Caspian Sea was named Kashyap Sagar after him. The Avesta also blames Takshak for the onset of brutal cold lasting over 10 months of the year. This corresponds to the Younger Dryas, the minor ice age from roughly 10,700 BCE to 9,700 BCE. Varshakama Sukta of the Rig Veda mentions 12 years of drought that resulted from the mini ice age reducing monsoon rainfall. The Ashva horses described in the Vedas were actually the Shivalik horses with 34 ribs, Equus sivalensis, not the 36-ribbed Central Asian horse. Archaeological evidence shows that the Shivalik horse became extinct immediately after the Younger Dryas. Thus, it can be deduced from this scientific fact that the Veda and Asura Veda were compiled before 9,700 BCE. Tectonic activity caused the Yamuna's Y1 channel to divert its course away from the Saraswati. Without tributaries, the Suprabha channel of the Vedic Saraswati gradually weakened and eventually disappeared into the sands near Uchna, close to Rakhigari. With the drying up of this channel of the Saraswati, large-scale migrations began from the region. During this time, King Videha Madhav and Gautama Rahugan migrated to the banks of the Gandaki River and established the Videha Janapada. The Saraswati Satri Yajna, a Vedic fire ceremony, was initiated in memory of the lost Saraswati, first mentioned in the Rig Veda's Nami Sapya Sukta. In the Mahabharata, the Suprabha Saraswati is called the Mother of the Vedas, as the Vedic mantras were composed on its banks. After the disappearance of the Suprabha Saraswati, the minor ice age arrived. When it ended and the southwest monsoon returned, the remaining Saraswati waters combined with the Drishatvati and flowed westward through the Kakkar channel. Its course became winding, called Nunzimati, and it continued to flow until the Mahabharata era. This explains why the Mahabharata mentions both the flow and disappearance of the Saraswati River. During the Younger Dryas, inhabitants of the Sumeru Mountains and Hindu Kush migrated towards the Persian Gulf, which was then fertile land suitable for agriculture, as the sea level had not yet risen to fill the Gulf inlet. This migrating community later laid the foundation for the Sumerian civilization. Archaeogenetic evidence shows that the Sumerian genome originated from India. At Gilgamesh's time, the minor ice age was ending. A sudden rise in sea level flooded the Persian Gulf, known as the Flood of Gilgamesh. During this period, the Hindu Kush region was ruled by the Arata kingdom, whose rulers descended from Druhyu. Sumerian tablets mention the king of Arata as a contemporary of Gilgamesh and Enmerkar. In Persia, around 9000 BCE, King Faridun, heir to the Jamshed dynasty, rose to power. He defeated the Takshak lineage, descendants of the mighty Naga clan, and re-established Asura rule across Persia. From his lineage sprang new nations. Ashur founded Assyria. Aram gave his name to Armenia. Iraj ruled Iran. Tur established Turan. It was also during this period that Scythians and Turanians began to mix and interbreed, giving rise to the ancestors of today's Turkic peoples. By 7500 BCE, the second Zarathustra compiled the Avesta, shaping the spiritual foundations of early Zoroastrianism. Greek sources describe how, around 7400 BCE, Dionysus launched vast conquests, extending Greek influence from Bulgaria to Persia and Afghanistan. As Greek power expanded, communities from the Sumeru highlands of the Hindu Kush migrated westward and settled along the Black Sea. European traditions remember them as the Sumerians. By 7100 BCE, Scythian tribes from Shakastan in Gandhara migrated into Eastern Europe, displacing the Sumerians. These displaced peoples later evolved into the Gauls, the ancient ancestors of parts of Western Europe. According to the Frankish Table of Nations, the Scythian king Alanus fathered 3 sons and 13 grandsons, who went on to establish 13 kingdoms across Western Europe. Old Norse legends recount that Odin, revered as a god-king, journeyed from the northern Caucasus through the central Eurasian steppe before settling in Scandinavia. This would explain subtle linguistic links between the Uralic languages and those of the northern Caucasus, preserved like whispers from a forgotten past. Irish traditions speak of their ancestors migrating from the eastern coast of the Caspian Sea, sailing via the Black Sea and the Mediterranean to Ireland. Scottish folklore tells of the union between a Scythian prince and an Egyptian princess, the origin of the Scottish clans. Between 7000 and 6000 BCE, waves of Scythian migrations swept out of Afghanistan, reshaping the genetic and cultural landscape of Eurasia. At that time in Bharatavarsha, the Ikshwaku dynasty ruled. According to the Vedic calendar, from 13,322 BCE to 7,322 BCE, 6 Mahayugas or 6,000 years had passed. In 7,322 BCE, the 7th Mahayuga began, named after Vaivasvata Manu, the progenitor of the present human era. Around this time, the sacred 28 nakshatras were redefined, with Abhijit being removed to establish the standard 27 lunar mansion system we have today, beginning with Ashwini Nakshatra. Then, an extraordinary cosmic event unfolded. On 22nd February 6778 BCE, as the 28th Krita Yuga ended, the genius astronomer Mayasura observed a rare planetary alignment on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, the day when the sun stood at the very first degree of Aries, with all the planets and the moon within a 26-degree conjunction. Based on this rare celestial marvel, Mayasura composed the timeless Surya Siddhanta, the foundation of Vedic astronomy. Modern software simulations confirm that this alignment occurred only once in the past 20,000 years, providing an irrefutable and unrepeatable anchoring point for establishing the correct chronology of the whole Vedic era. Before 6000 BCE, Sri Lanka was still attached to the Indian mainland, but during the Meltwater Pulse 1c, rising seas gradually transformed it into an island. It was in this shifting world that the epic events of the Ramayana unfolded. Between 5677 BCE and 5577 BCE, during the last century of the Treta Yuga. Valmiki's Ramayana records that in the 14th year of exile, Lakshmana witnessed a comet in the Mula Nakshatra. Astronomical calculations reveal that this was Halley's Comet, observed in 5635 BCE to be precise. A breathtaking benchmark for the accurate dating of this epic. Between the Ramayana and the Mahabharata stretched the Dwapar Yuga, spanning roughly 2,400 years. Based on archaeo-astronomy and textual evidence, the Mahabharata war can now be dated accurately to 3162 BCE. The Raghuvamsha and Puranas recount that long before the Ramayana, the mighty king Raghu of Ayodhya embarked on a Digvijaya, a campaign of conquest leading in all directions. Crossing the Indus, he defeated the Bahalika and Scythian tribes along the banks of the Oxus River. But after the death of the last Ikshwaku ruler, King Agnivarna, around 4700 BCE, these Bahalika Scythian confederations seized their chance, capturing northwest India, extending their dominion into Gujarat and Haryana. These rulers developed a distinctive logo-syllabic script, which we now recognize as the Indus script. Contrary to modern assumptions, the so-called Indus Valley civilization was not an isolated culture. It was part of this Balika Scythian dominion and woven deeply into Bharatvarsha's historical continuum. By the Mahabharata period, King Shantanu had reclaimed vast territories, founding the Hastinapur kingdom. Later, during Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Vedic fire ceremony, in 3188 BCE, Arjuna undertook a military campaign that led to victories over Gandhara, Bahalika, Madra, and northern Kuru. But following the Mahabharata war, catastrophic shifts began. As mentioned, the Saraswati River dried up, and what's more, severe natural disasters devastated many ancient settlements. Today, their silent ruins across northwest India bear witness to these upheavals. The Puranas preserve an unbroken chronology from the Mahabharata era to the time of Vikramaditya. Yet modern historians have distorted this timeline through three critical errors. 1. Confusing the Shaka calendar with the Shakanta era, erased 661 years from history. 2. Incorrectly portraying Buddha and Mahavira as contemporaries, when inscriptions show Buddha attained nirvana 700 years earlier. 3. Assuming Jesus' birth as 1 CE without evidence distorted global chronology. Accordingly, this date invalidates nearly all traditional timelines as it is not compatible with the dating of key historical events in the world. Correcting these mistakes restores India's traditional chronology, spanning 5,200 years from the Mahabharata era to the present. In recent centuries, adherence to the biblical chronology misled us to believe that civilization began only around 3000 BCE and no earlier. But traditional sources and emerging multidisciplinary evidence tell a different story. Medical adept Sushruta said, Ekam Shastramadhyano Na Vidya Shastra Nishchayam. A definite conclusion cannot be made by studying one academic discipline alone. Therefore, archaeology alone cannot decide about the chronology of civilizations. The multidisciplinary study presented in this book, Chronology and Origins of Indo-European Civilizations, weaving together traditional, literary, archaeogenetic, archaeo-astronomical, linguistic, and archaeological evidence, demonstrates that human civilization is over 16,000 years old, and its cradle was India. The early Indian civilization, referred to in Rig Veda as Sa Prathama Sanskriti Vishwavara, Indian culture, is one of the earliest cultures to have spread globally. And Sanatan tradition, Etad Desha Prasutasya Sakashad Grajanmanah Som Charitram Siksheran Prithivyam Sarvamanava. This land of India shall be the earliest teacher for all the people in the world, to show them what humanity is, what divinity is, how to find meaning of life. This has been scientifically validated in this book. Therefore, it may not be an exaggeration to say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Vasudhaiva Bharata Kutumbakam. The world is one family. Bharata was the cradle of world civilizations.